The message came at exactly 1200 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Every communication device in the galaxy received it at the same moment. Radios, computers, even simple message displays all showed the same words in every known language. We are the hegemony. We come from beyond your galaxy. You will submit to our rule or face complete destruction. You have 1 year to decide. This message will not be repeated. Admiral Nicole Patterson stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, staring at the words on her main screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. They were trying to trace the signal, but it seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Any luck finding the source?" Nicole asked her communication officer. "No, ma'am. The signal appears to have been broadcast from multiple points simultaneously. Whoever sent this has technology far beyond anything we understand." Nicole had commanded human peacekeeping forces for 15 years. She had seen wars end and peace begin. She had watched humans bring hostile species together and turn enemies into friends. But this was different. This was not a problem that could be solved with diplomacy. On the planet Zephyr Prime, panic filled the streets. The blue-skinned Zephyrians ran from building to building, trying to find safety that did not exist. Their government buildings emptied, as officials fled to underground bunkers. The Zephyrian Republic had always been nervous and quick to fear. Now their worst nightmares seemed to be coming true. Chancellor Vex Shala of the Zephyrian Republic sent an emergency message to all her neighbors. "The Manthari Collective must be helping these invaders. They have always been secretive. They must have made a deal with this hegemony." On Manthar 7, the insect-like Manthari leaders buzzed with anger when they received the Zephyrian message. Their compound eyes glowed red with rage. The Manthari had spent centuries building trust with other species. Now that trust was crumbling in a single day. Hive Queen Zetrix sent her own message to the galaxy. "The Zephyrians accuse us to hide their own guilt. Search their secret research stations. You will find the truth there." Within hours, old enemies were pointing fingers at each other. Species that had been friends for generations suddenly became suspicious. The fear of the unknown hegemony was turning into fear of each other. Senator Alex Williams called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 47 different species gathered on Haven Prime. Alex had hoped to see unity in the face of this threat. Instead, he watched 200 years of careful diplomacy fall apart. The meeting room that had been peaceful just days before now buzzed with angry voices. The Trilaxian ambassador accused the Corvan Empire of hiding hegemony technology. The Corvan delegate blamed the Silicon Brotherhood of making secret deals. Everyone suspected everyone else. "Order! We need order!" Alex shouted, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in the observer section, taking notes on everything she saw. Elena was Earth's leading expert on galactic politics. She had written books about how different species worked together. Now she was watching all her theories collapse in real time. Elena understood what was happening. Fear was a powerful force. When beings felt threatened, they stopped thinking clearly. They looked for someone to blame. They saw enemies everywhere, even among their friends. The arguing continued for 3 hours before Admiral Nicole Patterson stood up. The room slowly became quiet. Nicole was known throughout the galaxy as a fair and honest leader. When she spoke, people listened. "We are wasting time," Nicole said. "While we argue with each other, a real enemy approaches. We need to work together, or we will all die separately." "Easy words from a human," said Ambassador Krex of the Bone Riders. "You humans always talk about working together, but who will make the hard choices? Who will decide which worlds to defend and which worlds to sacrifice?" "The humans should decide," said Trade Speaker Mollis. "They are the only ones we all trust." "No," said Vex Commander Thrak. If humans make these choices, they will protect human worlds first. We need our own leaders making our own decisions. But as the debate continued, a strange thing happened. One by one, the alien delegates began to agree on something. They could not agree on who to trust among themselves. But they all trusted the humans to be fair. They trusted humans to make the hard choices that they could not make. Chancellor Vex Shala stood up. I propose that humanity take command of all military forces. Let them coordinate our defense. Let them make the decisions that must be made. Seconded, said Hive Queen Zetrix. Agreed, said dozens of other voices. Alex Williams felt sick to his stomach. This was not what he wanted. This was not what any human wanted. For 2 centuries, humans had been trusted because they did not seek power. They helped others solve problems without taking control. Now the galaxy was asking them to become rulers. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood up. If we accept this responsibility, everything changes. We will no longer be mediators. We will be commanders. When the war is over, you will fear us instead of trusting us. You will see us as conquerors, not peacekeepers. Better to be ruled by humans than destroyed by the hegemony, said Ambassador Krex. The vote was 31 in favor, 16 against. The galaxy had spoken. They wanted humanity to take charge of the defense against the hegemony. They wanted humans to make all the terrible decisions that war required. On Earth, President Carl Matthews sat in his office staring at the results of the vote. His advisors filled the room, all talking at once. Some said humanity should accept the responsibility. Others said it was a trap that would destroy everything humans had built. If we say yes, we become the military rulers of the galaxy, said Defense Secretary Linda Collins. Every decision we make will create enemies. Every battle we fight will be blamed on us. If we say no, the galaxy will tear itself apart before the hegemony even arrives, said Secretary of State Robert Kim. Millions will die in civil wars while the real enemy gets closer. Carl Matthews had been president for 6 years. He had never wanted to rule anyone except humans, but now the survival of the entire galaxy might depend on his choice. Outside his window, he could see the lights of Washington at night. Somewhere out there, human families were living peaceful lives. They trusted their government to protect them and their way of life. Now he had to decide whether to risk everything they had built to save species that might thank them today and hate them tomorrow. The weight of the galaxy pressed down on his shoulders as he prepared to make the most important decision in human history. President Carl Matthews made his decision on a Tuesday morning. He stood before the cameras in the White House press room and spoke to both Earth and the galaxy beyond. Humanity accepts the responsibility placed upon us, he said. We will coordinate the galactic defense against the hegemony. We will make the hard choices that must be made. But we do this knowing that we may lose the trust we have spent centuries building. Within days, everything changed. General Patricia Evans established the United Defense Command on Haven Prime. The peaceful space station that had been a center for diplomacy became a military headquarters. Ships from dozens of species arrived to receive orders from human commanders. The transformation was swift and brutal. Admiral Nicole Patterson found herself in command of the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships that had never worked together now had to follow human battle plans. Captains who had been equals now took orders from human officers. Captain Benjamin Clark commanded a mixed squadron of human, Vexari, and Zephyrian ships. His orders were simple: find and destroy hegemony scout ships before they could report back to their main fleet. The reality was much harder. All ships, attack formation Delta, Benjamin ordered over the communication system. The human ships moved smoothly into position. They had trained for this kind of coordination. But the alien ships struggled. The Vexari wanted to charge straight at the enemy. The Zephyrians wanted to hang back and use long-range weapons. Benjamin had to make them work together, or they would all die. "Vexari ships, you are the spear tip," he said. "Hit them hard and fast. Zephyrian ships provide covering fire. Human ships will support both groups." The battle lasted 6 hours. They won, but at a terrible cost. 8 ships were destroyed. 300 beings died, including 47 humans. Benjamin stared at the casualty reports and felt sick. These were not numbers on a screen. These were people who would never go home. On the planet Trilax, Commander Rachel Adams faced a different kind of problem. The Trilaxian government wanted to know why their star system was not getting defensive platforms. They had voted to support human leadership, but now they questioned every decision. "Our worlds are just as important as anyone else's," said Prime Minister Kelax. "Why do the human colonies get better defenses than we do?" Rachel looked at her strategic display. She had 40 defense platforms to distribute among 200 star systems. Every choice meant protecting some worlds while leaving others vulnerable. The human colonies got better defenses because they were critical supply and repair centers for the fleet. But she could not explain this without sounding like humans were protecting their own interests first. "The defense platforms are positioned for maximum strategic value," she said. "We are protecting the systems that support our fleet operations." "You mean you are protecting human systems?" Prime Minister Kelax replied. "This is exactly what we feared would happen." The same conversation was happening across the galaxy. Species that had begged for human leadership now questioned every human decision. They wanted protection, but they also wanted proof that humans were not playing favorites. Dr. Stephen Hughes worked 18-hour days at the Strategic Planning Center. He had been a peaceful researcher before the war. Now he spent his time deciding which worlds would live and which would die. Every plan he made sent someone's children into battle. The hegemony scout ships were getting bolder. They appeared in heavily defended systems and fought until destroyed, always gathering information before they died. Each battle taught the humans more about their enemy, but also revealed how outmatched they were. The hegemony ships were faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything in the galaxy. Their weapons could destroy a battleship with a single shot. Their armor could resist the most powerful weapons the Galactic Fleet could fire. Only by overwhelming them with numbers could the Allied forces win. "We need to use every ship we have," Stephen told General Evans during their morning briefing. "Even civilian transports must be armed and pressed into service." "The Manthari will not like giving up their trade ships," Patricia replied. "They depend on commerce for survival." "Then they can learn to survive without it," Stephen said. "We are fighting for the existence of all life in this galaxy. Everything else is secondary." Patricia stared at him. 6 months ago, Stephen had been a kind professor who wrote papers about peaceful cooperation. Now he spoke about sacrificing entire economies like he was discussing the weather. War was changing them all. The changes went deeper than anyone expected. Captain Lisa Norton had been a diplomat before the war. Now she commanded a cruiser squadron and made life-or-death decisions every day. Her ship, the UES Mediator, had been designed for peace missions. Now it carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "Target the hegemony command ship," she ordered her weapons officer. "All batteries, fire at will!" The enemy ship exploded in a ball of blue flame. Lisa felt no satisfaction, only emptiness. Each victory brought them closer to survival, but further from the peaceful future they had once imagined. The war lasted 18 brutal months. The final battle took place near the galactic core, where the hegemony had established their main base. Admiral Patterson led a fleet of 10,000 ships against an enemy force half that size. The numbers should have made it easy, but hegemony technology was so advanced that every one of their ships was worth 3 Allied vessels. Captain Benjamin Clark flew his fighter into the heart of the enemy formation. His mission was to deliver a specialized weapon to the hegemony flagship. He knew he would not survive the mission, but if he succeeded, the war might end. "Tell my wife I love her," he said over the radio as enemy fire tore his ship apart. The weapon worked. The hegemony Flagship exploded, taking their command structure with it. The remaining enemy ships fled back toward Andromeda, defeated but not destroyed. The galaxy had been saved, but the cost was staggering. Whole star systems lay in ruins. Billions of beings had died, including 400 million humans. Entire species had been reduced to scattered survivors hiding in refugee camps. On Haven Prime, General Patricia Evans looked at the final casualty reports. The numbers were so large they lost all meaning, but each number represented someone who had trusted humanity to lead them to victory. Now they were dead, and the survivors would have to live with the choices humans had made. "We won," she said to Admiral Patterson. "But what did we win?" Nicole looked out at the damaged ships limping. Back to port. "We won the right to exist, but we lost everything that made existence worthwhile." The hardest part was still coming. Now that the war was over, humanity had to face the survivors and explain why so many had died. They had to justify every decision, every sacrifice, every world left undefended. They had saved the galaxy, but in doing so, they had become the very thing they had never wanted to be, rulers whose power was built on the graves of those they claimed to protect. The victory celebration lasted 3 days, but Admiral Christine Moore felt no joy. She stood before the rebuilt Galactic Council, presenting casualty reports that made even hardened warriors weep. 4 billion beings had died in the war against the hegemony. Entire species had been reduced to a few thousand survivors. The Corvin Empire lost 60% of their population, Christine read from her report. The Silicon Brotherhood no longer exists as a functioning government. 12 minor species are completely extinct. The council chamber was half empty. Many of the seats belonged to species that no longer had representatives to send. The survivors sat in silence, processing numbers that were too large to truly understand. "But we are alive," said Trade Speaker Mollis. "The hegemony is gone. We owe our existence to human leadership and human sacrifice." Nods came from around the chamber, but Christine noticed they were not enthusiastic. The gratitude felt forced, like something the aliens thought they should express, rather than something they truly felt. Ambassador Douglas Turner tried to restore some of the old diplomatic relationships. He had been Catherine Brooks's replacement after she died in the Battle of Sigma Station. Douglas remembered the peaceful negotiations of the past and wanted to return to those simpler times. "The war is over," he told the Trilaxian delegation. "We can go back to solving problems through discussion rather than force." Prime Minister Kalax looked at him with tired eyes. "Can we? You humans have fleets stationed in our systems. Your soldiers guard our supply lines. Your officers command our remaining ships. How do we go back to the way things were when you control everything?" Douglas had no answer. The truth was that humanity did control everything. The war had required total coordination under human command. Now that the hegemony was defeated, nobody knew how to untangle the military structure that had been built. Secretary of Defense Linda Collins received reports from across the galaxy that troubled her deeply. Intelligence officers reported secret meetings between surviving alien governments. They were not planning attacks on external enemies. They were discussing the human problem. The Zephyrian Republic had formed a mutual defense pact with 3 other species. Their public statements talked about protection against future invasions. Their private communications revealed a different concern. They were preparing to defend themselves against human expansion. "They think we want to conquer them," Linda told President Matthews during their morning briefing. "They cannot believe that we will voluntarily give up the power we gained during the war." Carl Matthews looked older than his years. The stress of commanding a galactic war had aged him decades in just 2 years. "Maybe they are right to worry. Some of our military leaders are suggesting we keep control of key systems. They say it is for galactic security." The pressure was building from both sides. Human military officers argued that withdrawing from strategic positions would leave the galaxy vulnerable to future threats. Alien governments argued that continued human presence was itself the threat they feared most. General Patricia Evans met with her senior staff to discuss post-war strategy. The room was filled with officers who had commanded fleets and conquered star systems. They had grown used to making decisions that affected billions of lives. "The Vexari are rebuilding their fleet without our approval," reported Colonel Frank Bennett. "The Menthari are restricting access to their trading networks. They are acting like we are occupying forces rather than allies." "Because that is what we are," replied Admiral Nicole Patterson. "We may not have intended to become conquerors, but that is what the war made us. Every species in the galaxy takes orders from humans now. That is not friendship. That is dominance." The breaking point came during the Peace of Haven Station ceremony. The surviving species had gathered to formally end the state of emergency and restore normal galactic government. It should have been a celebration of peace and cooperation. Instead, it became humanity's trial. Chancellor Vex Shala of the Zephyrian Republic stood before the assembly. "We thank humanity for their leadership during the crisis. Their sacrifices saved us all. But the crisis is over. It is time for humans to return to their proper role as mediators, not rulers. We propose immediate restrictions on human military presence outside their home systems," added Hive Queen Zetrix. "No more than 50 human ships may be stationed in any single system. No human officer may command non-human forces except during declared emergencies." The proposals got worse from there. Humans would be barred from establishing new colonies without council approval. Human companies would face special restrictions on interstellar trade. Human citizens would need special permits to visit certain systems. Ambassador Douglas Turner listened in growing anger. These were the same species that had begged for human protection just 2 years ago. Now they were treating humanity like a conquered enemy rather than the saviors who had died for them. "You want our protection when you are afraid," Douglas said. "But you want our chains when you feel safe. You cannot have both." The vote was overwhelming. 38 species voted. For the restrictions, only 9 voted against. The message was clear. The galaxy wanted human protection without human authority. They wanted security without the implications of human power. President Sarah Johnson had replaced Carl Matthews after he suffered a heart attack from the stress of command. She now faced a delegation of angry human military leaders who demanded action against the ungrateful aliens they had saved. "We should establish a proper human empire," said Admiral Patterson. "If they are going to fear us anyway, we might as well give them something real to fear." "We could control half the galaxy within a year," added General Evans. "Our fleets are already in position. Our officers command their forces. It would be easy." Other voices called for a different response. "We should withdraw completely," said Dr. Elena Rodriguez. "Let them handle their own problems from now on. We tried to help and they threw it back in our faces." Sarah Johnson stared out the window of her office at the lights of Earth's cities. Somewhere down there, families were mourning human soldiers who had died to protect aliens who now wanted to restrict their movements. How could she explain to those families that their sacrifices were being repaid with suspicion and fear? The decision was harder than anyone expected. Stay and become the galactic empire that everyone feared, proving their worst suspicions correct. Or leave and abandon the peace that humanity had spent centuries building. But as Sarah watched the news reports from across the galaxy, she realized the choice had already been made. The other species had decided they did not want human leadership. They wanted human service when convenient and human absence when not. The galaxy had spoken. Now humanity would give them exactly what they asked for, whether they understood the consequences or not. The order came on a Monday morning, transmitted simultaneously to every human ship, station, and colony outside the Sol system. It was simple and absolute. "Come home. Immediately." Admiral Gregory Phillips stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, reading the message for the 3rd time. Around him, his crew worked frantically to prepare for departure. They were abandoning a star system they had defended for 2 years, leaving behind alien populations who still needed protection. "Sir, the Trilaxian government is requesting a meeting," reported his communication officer. "They want to discuss transition arrangements." "Tell them there will be no transition," Gregory replied. "We are leaving. What happens after that is their responsibility." The withdrawal was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships that had been protecting trade routes simply vanished overnight. Space stations that had been coordinating relief efforts went dark. Military advisors who had been training alien forces packed their equipment and departed without explanation. Ambassador Helen Wright supervised the closing of the human embassy on Zephyr Prime. For 50 years, this building had been a symbol of human commitment to galactic peace. Now, embassy staff burned classified documents while security guards prepared for evacuation. "The Chancellor wants to speak with you," said her assistant. "She says it is urgent." "I have nothing to say to her," Helen replied. "Our relationship is terminated." On Haven Prime, the space station that had been humanity's greatest achievement was being systematically shut down. Dr. Jonathan Parker oversaw the removal of all human technology and personnel. The aliens could keep the station, but they would have to run it themselves. The process was thorough and irreversible. Every human ship returned to Earth. Every human citizen was evacuated from alien worlds. Every diplomatic mission was closed. Every trade agreement was canceled. Every mutual defense pact was declared void. The aliens reacted with a mixture of panic and disbelief. They had wanted restrictions on human power, not complete human withdrawal. They had expected negotiations, not abandonment. "This is not what we asked for," Chancellor Vex Shala protested in a desperate message to Earth. "We wanted cooperation, not isolation." The message was received and filed without response. Earth's new policy was absolute silence. No communication with alien species would be answered. No requests for assistance would be acknowledged. Humanity was withdrawing completely from galactic affairs. The defensive systems around Sol were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive energy shields surrounded the entire star system. Automated defense platforms capable of destroying entire fleets floated in the outer darkness. Warning beacons broadcast a simple message in every known language. "Human space. Do not enter." Colonel Frank Bennett monitored galactic communications from a secret listening post on Earth's moon. His job was to watch what happened after humanity left, but not to interfere. What he saw made him sick to his stomach. The Vexari-Kolthak partnership that Catherine Brooks had negotiated years ago fell apart within 6 months. Without human mediators to resolve disputes, the two species returned to their old conflicts. Trade disagreements became border skirmishes. Border skirmishes became open warfare. "The Vexari have blockaded all Kolthak trade routes," Frank reported to his superiors. "The Kolthak have hired mercenaries to attack Vexari mining operations. Both sides are requesting human mediation." "Note the request and file it," came the reply. No response. The violence spread like a plague across the galaxy. The Trilaxian Union split into 17 separate factions, each claiming to be the legitimate government. The Zephyrian Republic went to war with the Manthari Collective over accusations of treaty violations. Pirates and raiders operated freely in space that had once been patrolled by human peacekeepers. Professor Mary Clark, Earth's last xenoarchaeologist, began documenting the collapse of galactic civilization. She had spent her career studying how different species could work together. Now she was watching centuries of progress crumble in real time. "The galaxy is reverting to its pre-contact state," she wrote in her reports. "Without human mediation, the various species are unable to resolve conflicts peacefully. War has become the default solution to every disagreement. The irony was terrible and complete. The species that had feared human domination were now experiencing the chaos that human leadership had prevented. They had wanted independence from human authority, but they had also lost the peace that human fairness had maintained. Captain George Allen commanded the UES Guardian, the last human ship to patrol the Edge of Sol system. His mission was to ensure that no alien vessel entered human space, but also to monitor what remained of galactic civilization. The news got worse every day. The Corvan Empire had collapsed into civil war. The Silicon Brotherhood had been completely destroyed by raiders. Refugee fleets wandered between stars looking for safe harbor that no longer existed. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the old Galactic Council," reported his communication officer. "It appears to be some kind of formal message." "Let me hear it," George said. The voice was that of Trade Speaker Mollis, now apparently the senior surviving member of the council. He sounded tired and desperate. "To the government of Earth and the human people, we formally apologize for our actions following the Hegemony War. We acknowledge that our restrictions and limitations were unjust. We request the immediate return of human mediation services to help restore galactic peace." George listened to the complete message, which lasted nearly an hour. It was a detailed admission of guilt and a desperate plea for help. The surviving alien governments offered to give humans complete authority over galactic affairs in exchange for their return. "Should I transmit a response, sir?" asked the communication officer. "No," George replied. "File it with the others." There had been thousands of similar messages over the past 3 years. Apologies, pleas, offers of tribute, promises of eternal gratitude. They all went into the same files, unanswered and ignored. Humanity had made its decision and would not change it. Dr. Lisa Carter, the former xenopsychologist, now served as director of the Sol Defense Command. Her job was to ensure that Earth remained completely isolated from galactic affairs. She had once believed in cooperation between species. Now she believed only in the safety that came from separation. "The galactic population has decreased by 40% since we left," she reported during the weekly briefing. "Multiple species are approaching extinction levels. The trade networks have completely collapsed." "Any regrets?" asked President Sarah Johnson. "None," Lisa replied. "We gave them 2 centuries of peace. They threw it away because they feared our power more than they valued our protection. They made their choice. Now they live with the consequences." The final transmission came from a Kolthak refugee ship drifting powerless in the void. Trade Speaker Mollis was dying, his life support systems failing, his people scattered across the galaxy as homeless wanderers. "We should have trusted you," he whispered into his communication device. "We should have honored the peacekeepers instead of fearing the warriors you became. The galaxy burns because we forgot that peace requires someone strong enough to protect it." The message reached Earth's listening posts, where it was filed alongside 10,000 other desperate pleas for help. But unlike the others, this one contained something new: understanding. Too late, but understanding nonetheless. Captain George Allen stared out at the stars and thought about Catherine Brooks, who had died believing that cooperation between species was possible. She had been right, but cooperation required trust, and trust, once broken, could never be fully repaired. The galaxy had chosen suspicion over trust, independence over cooperation, fear over hope. Now they lived in the darkness they had created, while humanity watched from behind walls they had built with their own hands. In the growing silence between the stars, a billion voices whispered the same regret. They should have valued the peacekeepers, instead of fearing the power that peace required. But whispers carried no farther than the void that surrounded them, and Earth no longer listened to the cries of those who had chosen to walk alone. Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty. Through the big windows, he could see the diplomatic station getting bigger as they got closer. After 3 long years of talking and meetings, humanity was finally going to join. The Galactic Council. The war with the Zenthari Empire had ended 18 months ago. Both sides had agreed to peace talks with the Council helping them. Admiral Lisa Carter had picked Harrison herself for this job. The peace treaty would end humanity's first war among the stars. It would also let them become members of the galaxy's oldest government. Earth's children would finally have their place with all the other star-traveling races. The diplomatic station flew around the neutral world of Kepler 442b. This was a green world full of life that the Council used for important meetings. People from 12 different alien races had come to watch humanity join their group. Even the Zenthari delegation had come, led by War Prince Thekvar. They said this showed they really wanted peace. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Murphy walked up to Harrison. Murphy was his second in command. He carried a data pad in his hands. "Sir, we are getting clearance codes from the station. The ceremony starts in 6 hours." Harrison nodded. He watched the smooth alien ships floating around the station. Ships from the Valari Federation were there. So were ships from the Kryn. Collective and the mysterious ethereal communion, they floated in perfect lines. Each ship represented thousands of years of civilization and advanced technology. "Ryan, do you ever think we are moving too fast?" Harrison asked quietly. Murphy looked surprised. "Sir, we have only been in space for less than 200 years. These alien races have been traveling between stars since before humans even built cities. Are we really ready for this?" Before Murphy could answer, Communications Officer Helen Baker's voice came over the intercom. "Commander, priority message from Earth Command. Admiral Carter wants to talk with you right now." Harrison walked to the secure communication room. Carter's face appeared on the holographic display. Her face looked worried and angry. "Jake, we have a big problem. Our spies have heard Zenthari communications. The peace treaty is not what it looks like." Harrison felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean, Admiral?" "The Zenthari never planned to keep the peace agreement. They are using the ceremony to hide a big attack against our colonies. The moment we sign that treaty, they will hit New Geneva, Terra Nova, and Kepler Station at the same time." The room seemed to spin around Harrison. "Are you sure?" "Very sure. We have recordings of War Prince Thekvar talking about the operation with his fleet commanders. They call it the final cleansing. They want to kill all humans before we become dangerous to them." Harrison looked at the data files Carter sent him. Battle plans, fleet movements, target lists. Everything was there, planned out in perfect detail. The Zenthari had tricked them completely. "What do you want me to do, Admiral?" Carter's face became hard. "You will go to the ceremony as planned, sign the treaty. But Jake—" She stopped, thinking about her words carefully. "Sometimes peace is just war using different methods. Remember that." The transmission ended. Harrison was alone with the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. In 6 hours, he would shake hands with the beings who planned to kill his entire species, and he would have to smile while doing it. Harrison walked back to the bridge. The diplomatic station was much closer now. He could see the different alien ships docked there. Each one represented a race that had survived for thousands of years. They had learned how to live together in peace. Or so it seemed. "Sir, is everything all right?" Murphy asked. Harrison looked at his friend and officer. Murphy had served with him for 5 years. They had fought together in the war against the Zenthari. Murphy had saved his life twice during the Battle of Proxima Station. "Ryan, what do you know about the other council races?" Murphy thought for a moment. "They are old, sir, very old. The Valari have been spacefaring for over 20,000 years, the Kryn for even longer. They have seen young races come and go." "And what happens to the young races that do not work out?" Murphy's face changed. "I do not know, sir. The history files do not talk much about failed species." Harrison nodded. That was what he had thought. The Council had a long history of dealing with young races. Some joined and became part of their great civilization. Others did not. What happened to those others was not discussed in the official histories. "Sir, should I prepare the crew for anything special?" Murphy asked. Harrison watched the alien ships. They looked peaceful floating there in their perfect formations, but he knew that many of them carried weapons that could destroy entire planets. The Council maintained peace through strength. But whose strength? And used against whom? Just make. Sure, everyone knows their jobs, Ryan. Today we make history, one way or another. The Liberty continued toward the station. In a few hours, Harrison would sit in a room with beings who had ruled the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. He would sign a treaty with creatures who planned to murder every human in the galaxy. And he would do it because sometimes the only way to save your people was to walk into the trap with your eyes wide open. The ceremony would be beautiful. The speeches would talk about peace and cooperation and a bright future for all. And while the pretty words filled the air, Xanthari warships would be moving toward human colonies full of families who thought they were safe. Harrison touched the communication device on his belt. When the time came, he would be ready. Admiral Carter was counting on him. Humanity was counting on him. And the aliens who thought humans were just another young race to be managed or eliminated were about to learn how wrong they were. The diplomatic station grew larger in the view screen. Soon, very soon, the real test would begin.